What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful, back in the studio doing a sit-down video. It's been a while since I've done one, but now that we are back in the studio, I wanted to share some experiences that I've had across wrestling, whether it be traveling to events, working events, covering things. And this video is shamelessly piggybacking off of the success of former Tough Enough winner Maven. Maven has become such a fantastic success story, not just for former wrestlers, but in wrestling media in general. He came along and started doing YouTube videos about his personal experiences in WWE and how things work. And when you watch his videos, you see this big smile, warm, welcoming presence, this charisma in which he has carried over to hosting gigs, wrestling, reality TV, any number of things. It's no surprise to see that not only was he a success in those ventures, but also a success on YouTube. And I can tell you, in meeting him a few times, those feelings seem to be genuine from him. That seems to be his actual personality. So there's probably a 95% chance if you walked up to Maven and said, "Oh, do you remember when you met Sean Ross Sapp?" Or "Do you know who Sean Ross Sapp is?" He's probably going to say, "No, don't remember that guy." But the two times I've met him really spoke to his successes, not just on YouTube, but in life in general, because he does seem like a wonderful guy. Now, both of these actually tied into wrestling matches that I did. In, I believe it was 2022, I hadn't wrestled in probably 6 or 7 years or done anything in the ring. And you could hardly call what I'm about to talk about in-ring wrestling. I was hit up by GCW, and they asked if I wanted to do a spot in their cluster match. It's a battle royal that is so bad it's good type of thing. And they had some ideas, and I pitched the idea of my co-host, Denise Salcedo, eliminating me from the cluster. I thought that would get a good pop. She was a GCW ring announcer at the time. So Denise had never done anything in the ring. The night before, we went over and practiced how to throw me out of the ring. And of course, when you're setting up for something like this, there are things that will go awry. I didn't know where the hard cam was. She forgot how to throw me over that top rope. But it was the lead up in which I met Maven for the first time. Now, we were outside. It was raining a little bit. Denise was, she needed a breath of fresh air. She needed to go out and sort of compose herself a little bit. She had never done anything like this before. She had been a ring announcer. She had done live shows. She had done podcasting, hosting, and the like, but never a quote-unquote wrestling match. And in the lead up to it, we got thrown an awful lot of things. I was told I was going to be working a little bit with Josh Barnett. Somebody had pitched her to do a Canadian Destroyer. Some of those things got through. Some of them didn't. But Maven approached us, and he's like, "How y'all doing?" And we knew he had no idea who we were. And I was like, she's a little nervous. It's her first time. We're doing this little spot. And he just looked at her, and he said, "You know what? It's not worth worrying about. On this kind of show, if the audience is having fun, you're doing the right thing." And funny enough, he was in this match as well. That's how wild the GCW cluster is. You can never really predict what's going to happen. One of the things that was supposed to happen, on my way to the ring, I was supposed to talk a little trash to a woman by the name of Shaza McKenzie, who I have since wrestled.
Oh my God.
We were going to sort of start a feud that we had begun on social media, but we were going to start it in front of a crowd here. I was going to fake interview her, like be a little mean to her, cut a promo, kick her in the head, all that stuff, then make my way to the ring, cut a little bit more of a promo, do my spot, and get eliminated. Shaza's real favorite pro wrestler ever is Maven. The odds of that, considering the brief amount of time he was in WWE, seemed to cross paths with when she really fell in love with pro wrestling. So Maven was in the match. He did his signature drop kicks, which he does incredibly well. And Shaza, who had been beaten down, He picked her up, carried her through the curtain, and sort of like a conquering hero. You know what I mean? And as I see Shaza marking out through the curtain, she goes, "It's Maven, mate. What do I do?" She couldn't say no to that. That was, probably a career highlight for her. So immediately upon hitting the curtain, I had to think of something else. I had to think of a different promo on the spot.
Sean Ross Sapp! I'm gonna need $5 from each one of you right now.
Boo!
Do you know? Give me that. Do you know what it's gonna be like to watch all these people get their ass whipped by a dirt sheet rider?
And I mean, that's something that you just run into in matches like that, right? You run into a little bit of disorganization and the like, but Maven could not have been nicer. He was such a wonderful guy. Fast forward a year and a half, and I am wrestling Shaza McKenzie in my first actual match in, years. And Shaza took really good care of me. We made me look passable, all that. But I met Fandango backstage at that show. And then I'm leaving Chicago the same day that I flew in, and I see Fandango in the airport. And I'm like, oh, hey. And then I look up, and it's Maven. Maven, who was not on this show whatsoever, just happened to be in one of the smaller terminals in Chicago airport as I was flying back to Lexington, and he's just chatting with Fandango. I'm like, yeah, I just wrestled the girl who you carried back at GCW, who was your favorite wrestler, or the girl who idolized you growing up. You were her favorite wrestler. He asked how the match was, and he couldn't have been nicer. He couldn't have been more genuine. He had just gotten back from North Dakota, South Dakota, or something like that, and was doing some sort of connecting flight. And he shared his experience there, and he asked how she was doing, and asked how the match went, and said, well, did they react this way? Did they react that way? Was there anything you were proud of? It was that show of genuine interest in how things went for me, a person that he had met once before and probably didn't remember. And then Shaza, who obviously held him in such high regard. It was that flash of sincerity and that brief interaction that I looked at and I said, you know what? It's probably a good indication of why he is where he is. It's probably a pretty good indication of why his content is so successful. A pretty good indication of why he was on multiple reality shows and they wanted him there. He was in WWE and they came calling again a few years ago. And why he was such a success on Home Shopping Network and the like. Because those interactions, whether it be with somebody like Fandango, who has decades in the business, somebody like me who reports on wrestling, but he has no idea who I am, somebody like Shaza, who did look up to him, who was inspired by him, or Denise Salcedo, who was very, very nervous ahead of what would be an important situation for her. He treated everybody with class and with respect, and that really shines through in his videos and his content. So I'm not surprised. We're going to give you guys more of these experiences and looks at people that we've interacted with and events that we've covered and maybe just hot topics in wrestling. For example, Maven won Tough Enough Season 1. I'm one of a couple people that have interviewed the other winner of Tough Enough Season 1, Nydia, who, much like Maven, could not be a nicer human being. Let us know what kind of stuff you want to see covered, like what things that we've been involved with, what stories we've covered, what people we've covered and maybe spoken to, interacted with, that you want to see broken down in this manner. And check out FightfulSelect.com, where you get early access to all these videos on Tier 2. Until next time, guys, we're out.